Last weekend I went to an interactive Halloween spooktacular called House of Spirits NYC, and I was joined by a special friend. And, well, one of these special friends. Who are you?
Who are you? No. Hi.
What's up, baby bards? I'm Ann Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge round these parts, and you're a part of this now, Matt.
Hi, everybody. My name's Matt. I do social media and community management for Eldritch Foundry. You can find me on most places on the internet at Matt Will Jackson.
But mostly here in our apartment.
Mostly here in this apartment.
Where we live together. So given that we live together,
yes,
and we're deeply in love, we decided we wanted to have a treat for All Hallows Eve, and we wanted to do, a haunted house event, but this one came across our social feeds with a bit of a twist. Matt, you should tell the people how you discovered it.
I mean, in the same way we would discover so many things, scrolling through Instagram, I got an ad for what seemed like a spooky haunted house, the House of Spirits.
Ooh.
Was advertised to us, and it was brought to us by the same people who do the Stranger Things.
Yeah, it's a company called Fever, and they do like interactive performance type events. And sometimes they're tied to big IPs, and sometimes it's more like this, where it's just kind of a strange world that you get to inhabit for an evening. Do you think that's the best description of this?
It's a good one to go with to keep this video going forward.
Sick. So, let's give you guys a sense of what it actually was. For between, I think it's like $79 to $120, depending on how close to the actual weekend of Halloween it was. You could get tickets for 2 hours of an experience in Volkov Manor. Volkov Manor! Yeah.
Volkov Manor.
Man, why is it so hard to say? Anyways, it's all of the ghosts that ever lived there still do. It's a very American Horror Story murder house in terms of vibe for how things go down here. But we are invited to a soiree to meet the spirits of Volkov Manor, nailed it,
yes,
and learn more about their story.
Yeah, so it's not just like a haunted house where you go, see a spooky thing jumps out at you. It's really more interactive about learning the story of what happened in this house. And
we had just been to Galactic Star Cruiser at Disney, and a lot of that is about rewarding curiosity and asking questions. So I think we were very excited for this, for a taste of that same kind of experience of meeting different NPCs and learning about who they were and whether or not we could help them. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of what the evening is. I suppose we should also say that there's performance elements. There was burlesque. There was devised dance pieces throughout the evening.
There was close-up magic.
Yeah. So and there was also theming throughout the entire. I think it was 4 or 5 flights. It felt very Gilded Age, if anyone watches that show, as far as the time period that the house would have been built. And it was down in the financial district. So every floor had new spirits and entertainments to entice the soul forever. And cocktails. That was a part of it. There were 4 different cocktails. We did the VIP pass, so we could enter 15 minutes before our ticketed time, and we could skip whatever line of general admission there were, which honestly was probably 10 to 15 people. So it's not a huge advantage for us, but maybe it would have been if we were on Halloween weekend. If we'd gone this weekend instead, maybe it would have made a difference or had a more popular timestamp. But for 7 p.m. the week before Halloween, we just kind of walked right in, and then they gave you a tarot card, and you would wait for your tarot card group to be called, and then you would be sent up into the manor.
Yeah, the tarot card was sort of just like a roll call device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you remember what ours was?
No, do you?
It was called to the void.
Cool. And thusly we were. The other types of events that were there was sort of a scavenger hunt And then on the top floor as well, there was kind of like a maze type horror experience. That pretty much sums up, you know, as best one can, the type of experience this is. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the story, because as much as we took advantage of the 2 hours we had to explore, and we are fine with rocking up to NPCs and being like, what's up with you? We have no compunction about that. We're interested in the story. I think we walked out, I guess, what would you say the percentage of story understanding you had by the time you left was, like 1 to 100?
Listen, I think if I had a multiple choice test, I could get there, but if you just asked me to explain it straight through, it would be like barely passing.
Yeah. Well, and the reason for this is because they basically take you up into an introductory room where one of the spirits says, welcome, you can talk to the spirits, gives you like the rules of the road, don't touch people, don't touch the spirits, and, you know, be curious, ask questions. They're happy haunts who are willing to tell you their story. And so they do give you a bit of advice on how to engage, but we also found that we were getting places like right as stuff was ending often. Yeah. So we would walk in and like a close-up magic act would be ending, or we'd walk in and somebody would say like,
and that explains the entire thing.
And we'd be like, uh-oh, we missed it. So we sometimes were able to stick around and get those spirits to speak to us again and tell us their story, but other times they'd be like, and now I'm off forever, and disappear into the night.
It was difficult to try and gauge whether or not, okay, if I hang around for like another 5 minutes, are they gonna do it again, or
am I now missing
missing something else?
Yeah.
And so we would basically chasing the coattails of, and I don't know how we managed to like get behind.
Yeah.
Maybe we took too long yelling at a Ouija board. I don't know.
It could be. After the introduction, you go into a room with a Ouija board, and this was one of my favorite kind of parts of the evening, even though it had just started.
The Ouija board was this large, like wall-sized thing with the planchette just floating, like magnetized, sort of just sliding around on the thing as you asked it questions. So you had a bunch of drunks just going, "Hey,
who are you?" Yeah, and trying to.
Yes, like everybody's. You can kind of hear everybody mumbling, trying to like
spell.
Yeah, just fill in the rest of the words.
Yeah, and mostly people were very kind with their time and being like willing to be like, oh, I'm sorry, did I speak over you? Go ahead and ask again. So in that way, like that did feel like the room where we were most like all in it together. But every other experience we had, even if somebody else like walked up into it, I never felt like I was really like sharing information with other people. And I wish that we had, because we might have walked out of there with more than like a 60% understanding of what the hell was happening. What we know about Volkov Mana, why can't I say it? What we know is that there was a doctor who treated the mentally ill in this house, and anyone who dies here, their spirits remain, but their spirits cannot see each other once they have passed on.
Although sometimes they can for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, but...
And then also his brother's kids, his nephews and nieces, came to visit it and live in this house.
Because their parents died somehow.
And further spooky things happened.
Yeah. And there's also the patients, when they were nearing the end of their lives, would start talking about like the Midnight Man. So these were the things we had to go off of. And we certainly learned more than that, but before we tell you more about what we learned, we should issue a bit of a content warning. The next bit of the video, we will touch on themes of harm to children and sexual abuse. If you don't want to hear about any of that, we will give you a time code right here that you can skip to continue to hear about our review of the event. One of the things that was great about the Ouija board as the first event was that it did point you in a direction. So we asked, who are we speaking to? And it said Nick. And then we said, Nick, who is your favorite spirit in the house? And they said, Dimitri. So then when we went upstairs and met the doctor, we asked the doctor, do you know who Nick is? And he said, my brother. And then we said, who is Dimitri? And he said, why? And we said, because Nick said Dimitri was his favorite, and he got like a very confused or pained look on his face and said, it's interesting that Nick would tell you Dimitri's his favorite because that was his son. And I will say that when my nieces and nephews arrived, there were signs of abuse. And that was all he said. But then when we talked to the nurse and asked the same questions, she was like, oh yeah, they were sexually abusing their children. And I was very shocked that she just kind of, boom, came out and said it. There was no kind of content warning anywhere, which, you know, I think we're in a world where there are a lot of people that are thinking to do that sort of thing, but not everybody is, especially for horror. But I will say that, like, this is certainly not an event for children, which, like, is clear from the advertising. And there was, you know, burlesque and drinking and all that stuff. But it was very shocking just to have that sort of just like put out there, and now we're supposed to interact with that. And I wanted nothing to do with knowing any more about that. Right? Like, how did you feel?
It was very much like, and that happened, and that performer was very aware that she's like speaking to you in a crowded space. So not only is she telling you these horrific things, she's also doing it just
like
very
right
in
there.
your space so that you can hear about the horrible things that are happening.
And it wasn't to make us uncomfortable. Like, this performer did not make me uncomfortable with her performance. It was clearly the element of the story that she had been directed to give. And I was like, please don't. So we will talk more about the kids, but we won't talk any more about that element. When we expressed concern about the children to the doctor said that he felt the kids had found a way to protect themselves. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. One of the things about like haunting stories that I like is a sense of time period and when people existed in the house. And that element was very hard to piece together in this experience because the costuming was very like elevated horror fantasy, Guillermo del Toro, like Lady Gaga music video-esque.
Yeah, so like I've only been watching horror stuff for a while because I'm easily spooked and frightened by things.
But I make him do it.
But you make me do it because you're afraid to watch alone.
Uh-huh.
And I'm here. But at some point in like the history of things, and what was it we watched a while ago, like Crimson Peak, where like at some point some ghosts got hot or sexy, or like got like a very particular style of fashion.
Yeah. It's horror of the gorgeous. Like, I don't know how to explain it. But everything was like long and elevated. Like, the nurse had these very gaunt, Maleficent-esque sharp cheekbones. I thought that the doctor looked like the Pope.
Which is how we learned that you don't know what the Pope looks like. So
did he have a Pope hat that like covered his eyes with a veil?
Not. He had a covered at the half like a cowl, but then that went straight across here and then arced over like a perfect like half moon.
I have no memory of this.
And it completely like covered his eyes and the top half of his face. So, you know, just like the Pope.
Just like the Pope, obviously. The other thing that we had, the one time period sort of centric person, was we had a burlesque dancer there who had been one of the patients who was obsessed with James Dean and was claiming she was married to James Dean, right?
Now, how that interacted with the rest of the story, we don't know.
We heard that from somebody else, and I noticed she was carrying around like a picture of James Dean.
Her routine, which was remarkable.
It was beautiful. She was great.
Was centered around this portrait she had of James Dean, but how James Dean factored into the story of these kids. And
also like the time period, because I got maybe it's the name Volkov, but Volkov made me think of like, grandmother, it's me, Anastasia. Like that period, which I don't think is this. Maybe I don't know what history is in the real world, but I don't think James Dean crossed over with that time period. But I guess Russia is more than the Romanovs, so.
There was also the sleight of hand guy, which it was a fun, spooky routine, but also did not like factor into the story.
And we like stayed there twice because we came in when it was ending. So we were like, we gotta see this spooky man and his secret communications.
Because when his bit ended, he's like getting everyone to like take out their phones and like scan a thing, and
we've been trained by Galactic Star Cruiser to scan.
And he's like asking us to wait and scan this thing, and I'm not super sure whether or not he was supposed to be doing this, but because like we eventually did get around to like getting our stuff scanned and like go, and it took us to like his personal website.
He was like, hire me for parties, and I was like, I could have been talking to 1,000 ghosts in the time it took you to scan my phone.
Yeah, because there were a lot of like weird technical hiccups, and that bit of it took me out a while.
Yeah, that was tough. There was also like someone playing the cello in like a forested area. There was a seance. This was a part of the story that was wild to me, which was like the Yggdrasil Norse.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
So the house, the interior of the house, does not exist necessarily within New York City.
New York City. Well,
it exists wherever the story is being told. So it is non-specific. But also maybe built on top of the World Tree?
Or with wood from the World Tree?
Something. Anyway, so we went into this weird seance, and there was this spooky lady with a fun mask, and that was Madame Gaunt, and I do not know how she factors into the story, other than the comic bit, which we'll get to
later.
And if all this seems very disjointed as we're telling it,
it's because it was.
It was.
You're getting the authentic experience.
Within the seance, we were expressly told not to record or do any such thing, and very specific people were pointed out to like drop some like talismans
to give like an
offerings.
offering to summon the dark spirit that's supposedly haunting the doctor, which then I thought was the Midnight Man, which is like I don't understand.
Outside the bit, I believe that I think so. It was like named Vessus Blue, and I need to do a Google on that at some point. She tricked the doctor into letting it in.
Letting Vessus Blue in.
And I think that's what it was called, yes. Vessus Blue was the Midnight Man. Maybe.
Could be.
Anyway, so
I thought they were the
creepy.
same creature. For sure, I thought they were the same creature.
Seance, very creepy, very spooky, very dark. And
but also very disjointed to be like, welcome to the old gods, and the way, like, when Odin was on the World Tree, I was like, where the fuck am I? Like, what is happening?
But the actress doing that portion of it is like wearing a mask and like moving their mouth to a recording. That recording sounds like hot garbage, and I have no idea what was being said.
Tell us how you really feel.
Listen,
This is a review. It's very. You can trust us. Yeah, we were not invited, by the way. We bought our own tickets, so we get to have opinions apparently. This is an example of how like together we kept trying to piece things together, but it all just kept leading back to the kids, which is an element of the story that, as you know, I was like, good, I know enough, I don't need to know anymore. At some point, someone told us that, like, not only could the kids protect themselves, but they had killed their own parents.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming was revenge. But we don't really know how that happened. We know something terrible happened in the attic, and we got a chance to go to the Midnight Man's maze.
So the Midnight Man's maze was they would give you basically a number of candles less than 5.
Which is important.
Yeah.
That will come back later.
For us, it was 3, so one more than your group has.
Yeah.
So you were basically being escorted through this little maze, and it's pitch black, and there are strobe lights and things. And the idea is that you have the option to give one of your candles to one of the spirits of the children to save them.
Yeah, which honestly, I do love the design of that, because normally when you go to a haunted house that is like a maze in style, it's like, walk in if you dare, and that's it.
Yeah.
And this felt like we had a quest that we were given that ultimately was designed to fail. right? And
Yeah,
that's fine for horror. Like that's the conceit of horror and games like 10 Candles and stuff.
So yeah, we have our candles, and we keep giving them away to the children, and it obviously
and they would just come out of the
darker.
darkness and have scary baby masks.
Yeah, these children
like
were scary baby mask
wearers,
and there was a point where, like, I think we were on not our last one, but maybe our second to last one, where I did not want to give one of these things.
No, it was you. It was your last one because I had given my first
that's right,
one away.
because you caved immediately.
Yeah, I was like, small child. I said, "Are you Dimitri?" Because we were still looking for fucking Dimitri. Never found him, by the way.
He was clearly one of those. Maybe he was the one in the fez.
Yeah, there was just a guy in the corner.
So I think this was supposed to be
Fez. Cut to blurry, dark picture of man in corner with Fez on.
But the weird baby kept following me.
Yeah.
And there's only so much of a weird baby silently following you that I
you
think
can
anybody
survive.
Can so I gave it to them, and then I was out of the things. And then we get to the end of the maze.
Yeah.
And our representation of the Midnight Man is just
a head on a stick that comes in out of a dark
out of a curtain and then immediately back in.
Yeah. And by then it was pitch black dark, and we really could only see. At some points there would be flashes of light, and we could see all of these chairs just poltergeist style, stacks on stacks on stacks on top of each other.
Chairs this way.
Yeah, no one. And then the Midnight Man swooped out, and then I just said no, thank you. Okay, yep.
Oh, that's nice.
That seems Midnight Man-ish. Okay, no, thank you. And we moved on. So that was the maze. I liked the design of it. I wish it had gone on a little bit more and it had more elements.
More ghost babies?
Yeah, more ghost babies.
Okay.
But yeah, so then the next thing that we did was we went on a little bit of a quest, and by now we understood probably the most of the story we were going to, and we were sent to the children's rooms to go on kind of a scavenger hunt. And this is honestly one of the most fun things that we did. Was you were given a book of children's stories to read through.
There's a preamble before they let you wander these rooms. One was the tale of Baba Yaga, and
we had a mewling. There was one with an egg, one with a getting drowned or
yeah,
like
a drowned lady, and all that. We read through these stories out loud, which might have been
with different voices. Might have annoyed other people. We had a great time.
Yeah, we were all
cut to nonsense.
Yeah.
A little boy and his sister went to the pond to fish and pick berries. A strange creature called Leshy appeared to them. I'll show you a place where there are lots of fish and lots of berries.
Baba Yaga.
Mother died and the fire her in the earth went out. To fetch more fire, Vasilia had to find the hut of the witch, Baba Yaga. When Vasilia found it, she saw the hut stood on two giant chicken legs.
The allegorist came to town and went from door to door, collecting all the secret tales that none would speak no more. He wrote them down into his book, then tipped his hat good day. Without a word, he packed his things and went along his way.
And we're back.
So the purpose of the rooms is you were then supposed to go and find one talisman or token that related to each story in each room.
And the spirits that had been summoned from these storybooks by the children to protect themselves, because they can protect themselves, says the doctor earlier in the evening, were kind of in each of the rooms. And these costumes were super cool. Everything was very dim light, but I could tell a lot of time had been put into the design of all of the prosthetics and everything.
Except for the one that did just look like the Stranger Things.
Vecna?
Yeah. There was one guy who definitely just looked like he was in a Vecna costume.
Man, could you imagine just sitting up there and having to be in a child's bedroom, just ooh, to everyone who came through?
Well, yeah, so part of their job was to spook you, and some of them did that by just standing very still until you got close enough and then just went blah.
Blah. Yeah. It's an older code, but it checks out.
You know, listen, it's a good
It's a
method.
good bit.
The other one, the one that was the, I guess, ghost guardian of the baby.
That was the Mewling.
The Mewling,
They looked like a Venus flytrap, and they just had the wildest crawling physicality.
Yeah, they spider crawled, crap crawled.
Yeah, along the ground. Yeah, it was wild.
I did not like that one.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
My favorite was the Baba Yaga because it looked very much like the penguin.
Yeah, it was like the
movie.
penguin. If the penguin was an inside-out chicken lady.
Yeah.
Do it that way you will. Or don't. It's horrifying.
But that one was a big fan of you. But so
I don't know why.
But in addition to like,
I called her Miss Yaga.
Yeah.
Miss Yaga.
If you're nasty.
Yeah.
And they were.
Yeah.
But in addition to like some minor spooks, they were also like trying to like, they also needed to like point you to the thing you had to find so that you would then leave, which was very funny. But these items were like eggs,
a bird skull,
bird skull,
tiny wet fish,
a Norse rune, and a thumb. Just
a cool little thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were all things that we recognized from the stories that we had read.
Because we got our quest text.
And unlike other things where, like, if you weren't one place earlier in the night, you just would never know what something meant. They did have those stories playing on various screens throughout the experience with all sorts of art with them. So I already like had a sense of some of them before we started actually like reading through all of the books. So I thought that was really well done. That was probably the most cohesive part of the evening, like observing those things earlier and then having them come back to matter. There may have been other stuff like that because in the sort of parlor room, which is where most of the spirit activity was, and talking to spirits, they would have spirit time interspersed with performances. And because I'm short, and because we were always arriving precisely when we meant to, like a wizard, but not necessarily on time for everything else that was happening, I did not always see or comprehend everything. And this was where they broke the convention of the spirits cannot see or talk to each other, because you were able to put together that, like, well, tell about what you think happened at the end of the story.
Okay, so we get into our final room, like we go back downstairs to like one of the performances I think we had missed, because so we caught like the very beginning and the very end of a thing, somehow. But the doctor was being murdered and flayed and dismembered by the guardian ghosts or the
by the spirit.
Yes,
those were the spirit ghosts.
Listen, I don't know. Yes, they were the kids, and or they were the Baba Yagas at other monsters.
Okay.
Or both, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was a fusion.
I don't know. So that was your interpretation of the end, and I didn't pick up on that at all. Just that, like, the doctor's having a bad day. That's what I picked up on. It was a bad day for Doc. But luckily, at the end of your scavenger hunt, where you picked up all the talismans, they gave you a code, and there were a bunch of tablets at the end, and when you entered the code, you got a cool set of comics to read through and scroll through and learn a little bit more, like tie some things together. Now, for me, did it tie everything together reading that? No, but I was able to confirm, like, yes, this is maybe who the Midnight Man and how it was related to the doctor, and the doctor was like at the center of it all, right? So in that way, I guess we were able to put it together, and I did appreciate the multimedia aspect of this, that some of it was, you know, very LARPy and talk to NPCs in a corner to get information, and some of it was simply taking in performance art pieces, and some of it was cocktails, but I do sort of feel like the experience can be wrapped up by saying it's like watching a horror movie through a kaleidoscope. Like, it's really cool to look at. There's a lot of things that probably connect, but you may not be able to, like, put them all together by the end. Would you do it again to learn more?
I don't know if I would do it again to learn, like, just like, all right, I didn't get this enough of the story.
Yeah.
Like, but I would definitely like I would go with other people or like next Halloween when I've completely forgotten this video even exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I would do it again. It was a fun time, even if I don't always know what's going on.
Yeah, I would definitely. My recommendation, if you were to do it again, and I don't know if it would work, but I would go directly towards the most active place at all times and not worry about avoiding crowds. Just because I want to get there. If you're going, if everything is queuing off of when they let those different groups based on the tarot card affinities up into the house and base the cycling performances off of that, I would have just gone upstairs and to the left every time instead of like veering to the right and doing what less people were doing.
Yeah, because we did kind of like go and get our drinks and just kind of chill for a bit.
Yeah.
And when we probably should have just like
gone
to the other room and be like, we're here to do action.
Which, you know, the cocktails were great. I will say I would have probably done the middle price if I had it to do again and just not had the truffles. They were lovely, but like they were not so special that it was worth an extra $15 or whatever. So yeah, that's basically, I think that pretty much sums up our experience at Volkov Manor, House of Spirits NYC 2022. So
what years?
I literally was like crickets.
I will say, I have been advertised like a weird Christmas Santa thing. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, yes. So I don't know, because our December is going to be a wild time to do anything else. But
it's brought by the same people, and so if you want a wild, wacky, interactive Christmas video, maybe that's the answer. Let us know if you want to see that, or if you want to see us like go LARP for the first time or something. I think we might be ready for it to dip our toe into the LARP end of the pool. Are you?
I don't. Listen, if you really want to, we can. I know some people.
Wow, he knows people. Well, with that being said, I think that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe, and come back for more TTRPG and role-playing goodness, and we'll see you next time right here on Heart Singer Games.
Hearth Singer Games?
That's the one.
Okay.
I'm a House of Spirits truther, and you have to know that we already recorded this video before, but Spirits haunted the video and deleted it. They don't want you to know the truth about Volkov Manor and
Volkswagen Manure.
The truth is out there.